Hello, hello. Welcome to the 28th episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the Chief Veggie Pusher, myself, Rebecca Gady Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need, and this podcast. With this podcast, I hope to bring you all the inside scoop of what vegan-friendly, and eco-friendly businesses are doing in the wide world of travel. So I am dedicating this episode to recap the year. I think if you ask just about any small business owner, they will tell you that it's hard to carve out time to evaluate what's happened and how you got there because you're always so focused on trying to bulldoze your way forward, or at least I have been. Also, in full transparency, the evaluation part isn't always very fun. Thinking about that actually makes me laugh because my initial inspiration for this podcast came from another podcast that started as a way to provide entrepreneurs a platform to be transparent about the behind-the-scenes details of their businesses. I thought, what a fabulous idea that's so needed in many other industries, including travel, veganism, sustainability, etc. But I'll tell you, I realized very quickly it wasn't easy to get people, or myself for that matter, to be fully transparent. We're all trained to only put our best foot forward at all times, no matter if we're limping or not. This year has been nothing short of a roller coaster. There were points when I thought, oh yeah, I totally got this. And other times when I thought, is Trader Joe's hiring? And although that's totally normal, I'll tell you it sucks. So to talk about all of the highs, the lows, the everything's in between, I've brought Matt in to help. Although he is not involved in the intimate day-to-day details, he sure does hear about it a lot. Hi, Matt.
Hey, I'm super happy to be here to talk about this great year with you.
Yeah, great. I don't know that I am super excited about this, actually. I thought about a few times changing this episode, but then I thought, you know what? A lot has happened this year. My initial premise for why I started this podcast and that I said that I was going to be honest from the beginning hasn't always transpired in the same way, if that makes sense. So I thought, okay, I got to put it back on the book. So here we go. I think the first place to start, and this is good for, I think, all listeners, is how in God's green earth did I even get here to begin with? So I've been now doing the travel part of this, like all of the travel stuff, the advisory stuff, the trips, the blog came a little bit, or no, I'm sorry, not the blog. The podcast came a little bit after, but the heavy travel stuff has now, this will conclude 2 full years. So last year was my first full year. I started in February, I think. Like it all feels like a crazy blur. But
the time has flown by.
Yeah, it has. Like it's scary. But prior to that, I ran the blog, just the blog, and did consulting and freelance work. And that was a 1.5-year process, 2-year process. So it's all been kind of weird. But the blog was the launch pad for everything, for this podcast, for the working with people one-on-one, the trips, like everything has kind of come from that foundational purpose of the blog. So it's really kind of crazy when I think back to just like even starting the blog and what that was like to today, because even like the blog no longer exists just as the blog because now the website has turned into a full company website and the blog is there. And you can find all the articles and everything, but all of it even looks so much differently. And I was writing an article for an organization recently, and I was like thinking back to when I first started writing guides and articles and stuff and just how far all of that has come as well. And I mean, it's great. It's good to see. It's good to see the change. It's good to see that I've improved, but it's also kind of hilarious to me.
Like also your writing has come a long way. Like it's pretty cool. Like
crazy.
Just from a self-evaluation kind of lens, like having edited a lot of your stuff from the beginning, like knowing how, not even just your grammar, just how you wrote from the beginning to where it's progressed to where it is now. Like you've gotten a lot better at your writing. And I think what I have to throw in here that people don't realize is how hard you work. You are a dedicated, hardworking individual. You crush it on a daily basis. I mean, people don't realize that behind the scenes is this of Veggies Abroad. This company is this cute little blonde girl who just sits
I'm
there.
No girl. I'm a full grown woman.
Well, but it's just you just back there, just like giving it your all, like trying to help out every person that comes to you, to the point where you like question, like, can I really help this person? I don't think I can help this person. Like, there's some crazy requests out there. And like, yeah, you really, really work hard. And I think that's, when I look back on a year and when I look back at what you're doing, I keep thinking to myself, like, oh, as this business grows and as I watch it grow, none of that comes without sacrifice. And you've made a ton of sacrifice.
Yeah, I think, well, that is absolutely true. We can get into a little bit of that. But that's the case for like every small business owner, and nobody ever sees that part of it because, I mean, we're all trained to just be like, yeah, everything's great. I'm happy and everything is perfect. But yeah, you do. You have to give up a lot. You go insane at some points.
Yeah, and it's more than just like, oh, I'm just going on all these trips and I'm traveling. No, you're planning all of that stuff, and you're taking like questions from people, and you're putting trips together, and then you're planning itineraries to where like you're just constantly on the go. And so anybody out there listening that is thinking about starting a small business,
good luck.
Yeah, because you truly work your ass off. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, working for yourself is a challenge. Working in travel is another huge challenge. Like, it's all a challenge. Like, none of it's easy, no matter like how it works. So, okay, so now we've laid out the foundation of how in the world I got here, where it all started way back in the day. And let's get into like the good and the bad of this year, like the businessy side of things that I have not talked about on this podcast. I've kept it all pretty focused on just travel stuff. And I actually remember, so the podcast that influenced me to start this podcast was, oh my gosh, I have his book. Stephen Bartlett, he wrote the book, The Diary of a CEO. And so he started a podcast. And when he very first started the podcast, I saw him speak at an event. He started it just with himself and a microphone in his like closet. Like, where he was recording it was always very entertaining to me. And so he was sharing like the behind the scenes of what it was like for him as an entrepreneur. And he was very open, like talked about the relationships that he had, the fights, the lost money, the failure, like all of it. And I thought, oh my God, wow, I can't believe this person is being so honest about these things. And it really resonated with me because within the travel space and within the vegan space, within sustainability, within all of these businesses that really, truly care, are people that are sacrificing a ton and having to deal a lot with the public and with a lot of scrutiny. But the public doesn't always understand everything that's going on behind the scenes. So initially I was like, okay, like, let's talk about that. Let's get these stories out there. And I remember the first time I asked one of the people I was interviewing about like how they were funding something. I remember what it was, but I remember phrasing something about like, did you bootstrap this? Or like, were you getting investment? And she like skirted around that and I think answered a different question. And I thought, oh, okay, so this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was. But it's also true because I haven't always wanted to talk about that stuff either because it's not fun.
No.
And sometimes I feel like too, people probably think like, oh, you're whining. But no, truly, it's just,
you know what, I remember when you just were first starting to write about some of the restaurants that we would go to in some of the destination cities. You would be like, well, I don't want to put any bad reviews in there.
And I still hold to that.
Because these are vegan businesses that we're trying to build up. And so why would we, talk poorly about a place or an experience we had? And I've thought about that a lot, like, or I used to think about it more, but it was like, man, like some people can be really, really harsh. And then, us being, well, you more so, but having watched this journey with you, but seeing some of these restaurants that we've gone to close down, like around all the different cities, it's really a bummer because, you know that they all went into it with these really high hopes and they had all these plans and like, it was probably their dream, like just like you quit your job and you started this company. You have had high hopes and you've worked your tail off to get here. But then you look at some of these other companies, you think, even if like the nachos were bad or something like that, it's like, well, they worked their ass off to get to the point where they could serve you those nachos, and they're trying to do something good and start one of these vegan businesses. And yeah, it's just, that's stuck with me. That's really stuck with me.
Yeah, because I always want to remind people, like, you have no idea what's going on in the kitchen. You have no idea what's going on in that person's day. They could have just had a bad day. I mean, yeah, there are bad businesses out there that shouldn't be operating and people who are in it for the wrong reasons. And natural selection in the business world will clear that out eventually. Like, all things will work itself out. But what people who are really trying don't need is just like unnecessary scrutiny. So I've just always operated with if I don't have anything good to say, I'm not going to say anything good at all. If someone were to ask me directly about a certain experience, then I'll talk about that with them one-on-one and be like, maybe it's good other times of the week, or, maybe there's X, Y, or Z, or I'll send an email just to the owner and be like, hey, I was here, blah, 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 and the experience was lackluster, or I had bad food. I don't know what the issue was, and handle it that way.
What do you think was the best thing for you from this year?
Oh, what was good? Okay, so a few good things were the growth of like individual travelers. So on the advisory side of things, I've worked with now over 50 different people in this year alone, which was a big increase from last year. I actually didn't look to see what the year before was like. And they came from all over this year. So US, Canada, and even the UK I had clients from, which is really great. I had one person who was like, do you only get people from the Metro Detroit area? And I was like, no, actually, I have a small smattering of people from Metro Detroit. People have been from all over, which has been amazing. And it always makes me really happy when somebody new pops in and they're like, oh, I'm California, I'm Oregon, or wherever that they've, tracked me down.
What do you think has been key to your reach? Like, how do you think you've reached so many people in so many different places? Like, we've gone to trade shows and things like that. Do you think it's from things like that, or what do you think?
It's been a mix of things. So definitely the website is a huge player in that, and having the blog initially, and the blog still is there as well. So it acts as a foundation for SEO. So people are finding me by searching for, vegan food in Paris, or vegan planning services, or vegan tours, or I don't know, vegan hotels in Europe. They're finding me from all different types of things. Like, the vast majority of clients find me just from regular Google searching. And now, like, with having a full, all of last year and now most of this year under my belt, I'm getting referrals and returning clients. And the referrals always they really make an impact on me, because somebody enjoyed working with me so much that they would tell somebody else. Like, that really makes me feel very good. But the vast majority
that's like the
Google.
Best form of advertisement, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned the events. So we did do a few events this year, which had mixed results. And that was helpful. That was helpful to be able to meet people in person and to talk about everything and to get more into the minutia, because you don't always have that kind of time or that luxury that people will read what you're saying, what you're writing about, or they'll listen to this podcast. So when you have somebody,
I found myself at those events though, it just got to a point where I was just saying the same things over and over again, and it didn't feel like real connection all the time. And I kind of felt bad about that. But at the same time, it's like, you have to get out the message of what the business is about.
Yes.
And you have to explain that to people so they're interested. Yes. But at the same time, you want to hear what people are thinking. And like make that connection so they want to come and visit your website or want to call you to, set up a tour or they want to go and take time on one of your trips, So
yeah, no, I think
that was interesting.
No, I do think that they were a really good connecting piece, definitely with certain people. And I think it's good that you kept the same message over and over again so that it was consistent. So people didn't get mixed messages. And then that message was reinforced by what they found on the website, what they hear on this podcast. Like your messaging for any type of business has to be consistent all the time. And so, that was good. And it was good to have that FaceTime. So one thing that people had told me when I first started, they worried that I wasn't real. And that's an issue with things on the internet, with businesses on the internet. Like, could I be a scam? And so being able to talk to people one-on-one and having them know, like, okay, she's a real human being and she seems pretty cool. Like that, that can break down hurdles, because in this industry, I'm going up against major companies that are global, companies with huge reaches, companies that have been around for a really long time and, have hosts of people behind them. And, what makes somebody want to decide to support me over that? And a lot of that comes down to the connection you have with people and the feeling that you're able to leave with them and that they feel like, okay, I want to support this person. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot about their connection to you as a founder than it is so much about the experience, I think.
What's interesting is that I don't think AI could do your job. I don't think you could be replaced by AI because you have to make those connections with people, and you have to. I mean, could someone theoretically use like an AI model to create like an itinerary? Yes, but there's a human element to that. I just don't think that the robot is going to get, and I think that's why you have to have someone like you. I don't think your job could be replaced by AI. I just don't see it. Do you?
Well, that's good. I actually am trying to work on an episode about AI and travel because it has raised its head so much. And no, I don't think so. Like, there's nothing that can really truly replace that human element. And the human element is so important for so many experiences. And you can train an AI model to get to know you and to understand, okay, she talks about vegan food a lot, so let me add that in somehow. But the problem is that AI stuff isn't updated right away. I think it's a 2-year lag. Some of them. And some of the times, it doesn't want to tell you that, it doesn't know something. So it will hallucinate and lie. And it also can contribute to, other issues of over-tourism by always sending people to the same thing. But I think the most important thing at the end of the day, AI will never be able to have the same kind of experience with you, to know you, your kids, your likes, your fears, your things that you dreamed about doing, the same way that I'm going to know. Or I've gotten to know people that I know about, their pets, and I, know that they mentioned that they really liked a certain thing that they did 10 years ago. And maybe there's some way that I can map that or wrap that into a trip or bring it up. There's definitely something that computers will never be able to replace with people. And
where do you see your business growing in 2025?
Another a good thing for this year has definitely been an increase of tours and just participation. So we've had a couple this year, and we have 3 on the books for next year. One of them is sold out as of yesterday. Yes, which is great. And actually, I say yesterday, it's yesterday as of this taping, so not yesterday as of all of you listening, sorry. And that's Thailand, and I actually am working on a second I have not started. I have to get enough interest in it. A second departure maybe for Thailand, because it has sold out a year in advance, which is great. Our Iceland trip is more than halfway full. It's 3/4 of the way, and that's in May. And then I added a Portugal trip last month, 2 months ago. I don't know what month it is anymore. And so we're working on, getting that sold out as well.
Does it surprise you that there's so much interest in Thailand?
No, I don't think it does.
Me neither.
I think because, well, yes, Thailand's great, but I think Thailand seems like very unique and interesting to people. But I think at the same time, it seems scary because it is such a different language. It is such a giant country. Like, how do you figure out like getting around and like where is the best stuff? And I think a lot of it seems kind of overwhelming to people. And then there's the food aspect of it that, people are like, oh, great. So how do I avoid the shrimp paste kind of thing? So, doing it like this, you get to see a lot of the country and then you don't have to worry about anything. So I think that is really why it resonates with people so well. Like Europe, on the other hand, while, it's nice to like have it taken care of for you, I think for a lot of travelers, Europe seems pretty approachable, whereas parts of Asia is harder.
The food in Thailand was so great when we went there. And you had it all worked out. All the places that you picked out on that trip to eat at, there were so many great things to say about all of the food that we had in Thailand. I think the people that are going with you next year are in for just a real really treat
for sure. That is definitely a food trip. And I would say, I feel like this is important to make a note of, is that not every trip is so food focused, but Thailand naturally lends itself to be because it is such a fruit and vegetable and food heavy destination. Like that's just part of their culture. Whereas Iceland isn't so much of a food destination. Like there's a lot of cool things, but it's just like not the same. And then on the same note with tours, it's always been my goal when I did start all of this that I needed to find a way to grow things and to push, push is the wrong word, but to gain more traction.
Drive the change.
Drive change as far as with promoting vegan options, with promoting responsible travel practices, with like promoting all of these things that need to really matter and take center stage in travel. So I am looking at other ways of how do I get this on a larger scale? How do I get in front of more people? And I've had some exciting developments on that. Will it all come to fruition? I don't know. So maybe that's something to listen for next year. I'm super hopeful for it, but I'm going to leave it as that. And the last thing is that this podcast is still going. So now we're almost at a year, which honestly, I don't know how I've been doing this for a year. I can't believe I've lasted for a year. And that in and of itself is just a Herculean achievement in my book.
Yeah, I think you've done a really spectacular job. And the podcast is wonderful. I don't know what your listenership's like, but for all those people out there listening, thank you. Yeah. This is just a really great way for you to reach your audience. And like you said, show them that you really are a person. You're not
I'm a real girl.
You're not just behind this blog, this weird, I don't know. You're out there. You're doing stuff.
AI hasn't created me. That's for sure. And I mean, a special thank you too, because the only reason that this podcast is still going and that it ever sounds like I'm not in a tin can, or that it's on time. Well, if I don't screw that up, is because of Jim, who does all the production for all of this. And he runs the Bloody Vegans, production company based out of the UK. And so a round of applause for Jim. And he has his own podcast as well. But I think now he has too many clients that I don't even know if he keeps his podcast going. But yes, big thank you for him, because if it wasn't him, I wouldn't do this. Absolutely not. There's way too much work that goes on behind the scenes with all of this. I just get on here and babble and say nonsensical things, and then I hand it over to Jim.
Not true. But his podcast, the Bloody Vegan podcast, is great. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of episodes from his podcast, and I've always really loved it. So
yeah, you've probably listened to more of his than you have of mine. I would really like to point that out, but we'll move on from that. So, okay, we'll go into the things that were bad this year, and they were plenty of them.
Oh, that Google change up is just like, wow.
Yeah, so people listening aren't going to know this, but Google has been going through major algorithm updates over this year. And actually, it started at the end of last year. And it tanked and just obliterated many small businesses, many what you would consider a small publisher, out there. Lots of people have lost upwards of like 90% of their traffic. So what you might not realize is when you search for something on Google, it is based on whatever the algorithm is that they have adjusted things. So they are adjusting the algorithm based on, trends, on search history, what people are looking at, what people are adding to search, like all of that kind of stuff, where people are spending their time, where they're jumping away from, where they're coming back to, all of that and above. So Google's been going through some wide changes. And oh God, my demise started sometime last year. And overall, I lost, I think at the worst, 70% of my traffic. That was
obliterated.
Yeah, I cried. I won't even be ashamed to say that, because so with that, what people might not realize, so I do all the travel stuff, but the blog is very much a business in this business. So the blog makes money from traffic, from ad sales. And that's based on the amount of people that are coming through, eyeballs on ads, clicking ads, all of that. But then also affiliate sales. So if I recommend a toothpaste tab or something, and you click on it and buy it, then I make money from that. You only really make money when you have a decent amount of traffic coming through. And that more than 50% killed all of what I had coming in. And at the beginning of this year, that was kind of tragic. I actually thought, I don't know if it continues like this, I'm going to survive. And I wasn't alone in that. There are plenty of publishers out there and small businesses that have felt the same way. And the person, so behind the scenes, there is somebody who manages the tech end of my website, and he manages the tech ends for lots of other websites. And he's lost a lot of clients because they've had to close up shop and go and get real jobs because they could not continue with the income change that they had from Google making these changes. Google has now gone through some other updates and has recognized that it has gone too far and there's been overreach, and that they are going to rectify things, but it's not going to be overnight. They have made a few changes recently. It's helped a little bit, but I don't know if all of it is affecting what's going on right now. Right now would generally be a slow traffic season for me. So it's really hard to know, is the latest Google update affecting me positively or not. I did, because of this, have to hire a larger SEO company and invest in having someone go through and do a big audit for me, which wasn't something that I had necessarily wanted to budget for. But you have to, in order to try and stop the bleeding, you sometimes have to bring in other means to do that. And so that, is helpful, but Google, God bless it. So when you are searching for things, spend time on people's websites, click around on other things. They do appreciate it more than you'll ever know. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
If you can't plan a trip with Veggies Abroad, at least you can invest your time on the website and look around and
click on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and click on stuff.
I appreciate it so much. So I'm hopeful as we move into 2025 that Google will continue to get its act together. But it has now forced everybody who runs any kind of an online business in the same format to have to look at revenue and have to really diversify things so that you are more stable and that you're not dependent on, that income. Because there was a period of time prior to, late last year where you could actually build a very solid income just from your website, just from the traffic that was coming through. I know plenty of people who just ran blogs and they made money off of ad sales, off affiliates. Maybe they did a little bit of work for magazines or tourism things, but the vast majority of their money came from ads and from affiliates. And that was huge. And so to lose most of that overnight. God, my heart goes out to all of them. And I shared tears for them as well, too. So
it's just having no control over something is so difficult.
It is. And it took so long to build to that point too, which is also like another point of it. It was like an extra nail in the coffin for me, or like nail in the heart, because that took me to get to that point where I was able to monetize the website and join that type of an ad program, because there are multiple layers of different ad programs, some that are good, some that are bad. That took 2 years for me to build to get to that point. And that was so much effort and so much blood, sweat, and tears to go into that, to do it, and then to have it wiped out like that so quickly. Whew.
It still is so much effort. You're constantly updating that. I mean, you think of, like we talked about earlier, sadly, when restaurants close, like you have to take those off the website, and then you'll get complaints from people, like if they still see it on there, and you're like, well, this place isn't there. Like,
I get all kinds of weird complaints. Actually, this time of year, I go through big updates with the website, and go through and check guides, and I don't add new content at this time of the year, because I'm just focused on trying to make updates as much as I can. But these updates are going to take me well into February, if not longer, because I'm doing so many other things on top of it. So the blog really has taken a back seat to all of that, because I've got people who want to go to Japan and Italy, and I had tours to run and itineraries to put together. And so that will always come first. So it's, good for me that my diversification has happened, so that it's not as much of a tragedy, but it's an absolute tragedy. Hey there, fantastic listeners. Let's hit pause on this episode for a thrilling announcement, a golden ticket to Globetrot with Veggies Abroad. Veggies Abroad isn't just your go-to for vegan guides and trip planning tips. It's your passport to extraordinary small group journeys, carefully crafted by the ultimate veggie pusher and your favorite podcast host, me, Rebecca Gady-Sawicki. I've spent countless hours researching the best vegan hotels, food, and experiences, and now I'm bringing those experiences directly to you. Join me and my newfound veggie pals on escapades to exciting and exotic destinations around the world. Whether it's trekking through the Thai jungle to witness elephants in their natural habitat, or staying at a carbon-neutral camp in Kenya during the Great Migration, our adventures are nothing short of spectacular. And guess what? Those aren't the only exciting trips awaiting you. So what are you waiting for? Cruise on over to veggiesabroad.com pronto. Well, how about after this episode is over, to explore our dazzling lineup of 2024 trips and secure your spot on your next vegan adventure today.
Can you tell the people about your work-life balance? Because
nice segue.
We're listening to all of the things that you have to do and that you've done, and like the blog, and like planning people's trips and doing these tours. And then you've got to be off to like Costa Rica, or you're going to Bali, or you're going to these different places, which sounds great, but you're still getting behind on your work. So when you get back, you're like, oh man, I've got to catch up the website, or oh man, I've got 10 people that want a trip planned. Like, how are you balancing that?
I'm not. There's no balance.
So how can you balance it?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I have not yet figured that out. I hope at some point soon I figure that out. I'd say it's kind of a goal for me for 2025 to get a better handle on it, but oh no, I'm an epic failure at work-life balance. I don't have a life. I don't do anything. Like, my exciting activities are Saturday when we go to the grocery store and we see our friends at Trader Joe's. I'm so sad, and I say it out loud, but it's true. I see everybody via my computer screen. But yeah. That's like the harsh reality of it, for sure. Because even when I travel, like, I have to work.
Yeah. Do you miss the interaction of being in the office?
Totally. Yeah. More so than I ever thought. I miss people. I miss having someone to like yell around the office and be like, oh my God, did you get that crazy email? That person's nuts. How can we do this?
Water cooler talk kind of stuff.
All the things I didn't think about that I would miss, I totally miss. It's like back to that whole idea of human connection. You can't replace that. And so I always really like when I have video calls with people, and it bums me out when people are like, oh, we'll just talk on the phone. I'm like, no, I'd like to see your face, please.
Like the other day you were frustrated by something that was going on. And you're like, this is one of those days I just really wish that I could talk to somebody in my office about this. And I'm like, yeah, just call me. Let's talk about it.
It's still not the same. It's not the same. Like, it's nice to tell somebody, but like when you have a coworker that shares in your same pain because you like work on the same team, you're working on the same projects, like you feel like you have a joint connection, like you're in it together. And that's definitely a nice thing and something that I miss. And who knows, one day maybe there will be a coworker here in my office or in their own office. My office isn't big enough right now to take on another person aside from the cats. So I don't know, like we'll see.
Do you think like one of those shared office spaces where you just see the same people all the time possibly would be cool? Because then you could like strike up conversations and be like, hey, how's it going?
I actually hate the idea because I don't want to have to pack up my stuff every morning, and like I don't have the same setup, and I can't easily like talk to the cats or sing to them like I do every day.
So is Frida a good coworker then?
She's
our beautiful kitty.
I sometimes have to coerce her to come upstairs and hang out in my office and give her things. I'm not below that. I will absolutely do that.
So out of the cats, which one's the best coworker?
It's a hard. Frida, probably, because she's cute and she's quiet. The orange one gets a little crazy occasionally. But I'll take either of them because I just like the interaction, that there's another living being in this house and it's not just me alone. But anyway, like that sounds pretty pathetic, but that's the truth, people. That is like what really goes on behind the scenes here. There's nothing glamorous. I am not leading some like super exciting life that everyone thinks I'm leading. I go to Trader Joe's and I eat chocolate every night. This is my life. And I wear the same stretchy pants almost every other day.
Very true. So tell us about like where you want to be. Like, tell us about where you want to be and what you see coming for you down the pike. Like, where do you go in 25?
Oh God. Well, I mean, actually, I hope there's a little bit more balance that comes in 2025. I am trying to plan things out further in advance, and I have gotten some things planned out further in advance, which has been helpful, but some things still creep up kind of last minute. I'm trying to figure out ways to, reach a larger audience more creatively instead of doing everything in person. Like those events last year were helpful, but I can't physically manage that many, to add onto my schedule on top of the other things.
Do you do exercises like plan? I know you try to plan your year out, but I'm talking like goals for the year. Do you like go through and think about what are 3 things I definitely want to accomplish next year? Like, and then write those down and then focus on those kind of like on a daily basis? Do you like, it's almost like vision boarding. Do you do that kind of stuff?
Well, so I do have a big board on one of my walls that kind of shows like the flow of business and like where does everything need to go through. And so I look at that every day to kind of focus on, okay, that are the things that really, where do we need to put energy into and how can that change? Where did that adjust? That's something that I focus on. I do have smaller things that I, want to focus on, like additional sustainability training just for educational purposes. I'd like to do more educational things next year. Better scheduling for myself and just my mental health for next year. Looking at ways to, reach a greater audience and trying to, get myself speaking opportunities with more events and conferences and, things along those lines. And that, it all just takes time. And I think we started this conversation being like, where the heck did the year go? I already feel like 2025 is over with like the amount of effort I've already put into planning for it. And that's hard. But it's like part of it. And one thing that I did do, and I think that's really helped, this year and the very end of last, is that the end of last year, I hired a coach, a mentor, and that has helped me in leaps and bounds in ways that I'd never expected. And I'm so glad to have that support, because this is a scary road to go down alone. I didn't work for myself before. I worked for somebody else, and I worked on a team, and I had employees and all of that. But I had guardrails. Like, it wasn't all on me all the time. So having someone behind the scenes going, nah, don't answer that. Or, you got to do this and that and the other, and you need to think about this. Like, that has been incredibly helpful. And he's definitely given me some things to think about for next year that I have to spend some time doing and diversifying. So I will work on that for sure, but it takes time.
Okay, so I want to play a fun little game.
I don't like games. Oh, no.
But this is real fun. Okay. And it's about your travels last year.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some fun questions.
Wait. I had one more bad thing that I wanted to add.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Then we'll get into your game. And it's managing people's expectations. God, this one kills me because...
Oh, God. Yes.
It's so hard with travel. And I just want to tell people to please stop looking at Instagram. Just stop. Because so many people have these ideas in their head, like, I really want to go to X, Y, or Z because it will be X. And I'm like, no, it won't. No. And it can't work for your budget, or like, this isn't like possible, or like, we shouldn't do it. Like, that is really hard. And I lose sleep over it, if I'm being 100% honest, especially like on our tours, because I'm always worried, like, is this going to be what people are thinking? Like, should I have added more of this? Should we have done this? Am I getting far away from like what's important to me and in this business and what I'm like promoting? And those things are so hard to balance. But I will say for 2025, it is a goal of mine to like be more true to that, and just being honest about like, nope, this isn't going to be possible because of X, Y, Z, and holding to it. Like, I hold to those things with quite a few things. Like, I don't support the cruise industry, and you'll never find that on an itinerary or anything like that. And I won't host like cruise groups or anything along those lines. But other things sometimes in destination can be more challenging to manage. And that's definitely, I have to really be more true to that, I guess, is the way to phrase it.
When you say like the Instagram photo, I'm thinking of like Santorini. Oh, you're going to go to Santorini. And you're going to see these beautiful white sand beaches and these cliffs.
There are no
and
white sand beaches
jump.
in Santorini, FYI.
They're white buildings, right?
Yes, whitewashed buildings and blue domes.
Okay, whitewashed buildings and blue domes. And then like these cliffs where you're just going to like swim out your grotto into these giant like pools and baths and things like that. But what you're really going to see are like thousands of people like in these little coves and these different areas.
All crammed into small alleyways. Yeah.
Yes. And like when you say managing expectations, I think of that. Or
that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, like being in Iceland and thinking you're going to have like the greatest vegan food experience you will ever have will be. No, you're not really there because you're trying to experience the vegan food. You're there because you're going to experience like nature and all its beauty. So anyway, that's what I thought about.
That's all true. Or people thinking I'm a magician and can make hotels, like give them a full vegan buffet. Like, that isn't always realistic either. And that's really hard. Hotels are some of the hardest things to work with, and they drive me nuts. I yell at them constantly. I think every day I have a battle with a hotel, and that's the reality. And that it drives me nuts. I really hope we get though to a point where I don't have to battle as much and it becomes easier. And there are definitely places that are so much easier to work with. And I wish I could only send people there And I do get to that point sometimes when people bring up things and I'm like, well, why don't we look at XYZ? Because this would be a much better experience. Some people are very open to that, but I think because of the internet, a lot of, and also people talking to other people, you feel like FOMO in that, oh, if I don't do X, I'm going to really miss out. But I've had more people tell me coming back from things that like, I wish I would have listened because that was a terrible experience. So yeah.
Well, and like part of the hotels thing is
I
like
hate hotels sometimes.
I know you
Today
do.
I really hate them.
But part of the hotels thing, like part of your mission is to try and change some of these hotels so that they consider like vegan options and they consider sustainability in their toiletries and they consider like what they're using for their sheets and all of that other stuff. Like that's part of what you're doing. So, yeah, if it means these companies lose business, your business, then maybe they consider changing these things in the future so they can win your business.
Well, that's part of a larger conversation because they don't see me as a great enough force yet to always acknowledge that it's something they need to consider. Some do. Some are willing to, be flexible. I have one that I'm trying to work with in France. It's like, okay, let's see what our chef can do for you. And I mean, really right now, like I'm on the bottom line of like just trying to get food options for people at some of these places where maybe vegan options are really limited, or like I just want them to have something for breakfast, like something more than fruit. Like my biggest fight with hotels is people getting charged 30 euros for fruit and toast. Like that's unacceptable. And you will feel my fury, when that happens. And just like, these seem like such easy things to do, but yet it's still in 2024, almost 2025, it is still an ungodly battle. But, and also, like, I guess back to my main point is managing people's expectations with that, because I think a lot of people think, okay, she's going to be able to just fix everything. And God, I wish I could, but I can't yet. I'm working on it, people. Stay with me. Let's play your game.
All right, let's play the game. All righty. So first up is, what was the best place that you went in 2024?
Do you have to do that voice?
No, I don't. I'll stop doing the voice too.
It's really weird. I think my best placement for this year was Japan. Although it was so ungodly hot. I've never felt heat that hot. And heat that hot, is that even a phrase? I don't know if that was right. Yeah, that was way too hot. It melted like my skin. It was crazy. I loved it. I loved the country. I loved the experience. I really look forward to going back. I am going to work on a tour for Japan for 2026. It was just fabulous. Like even before we left, I was thinking like, okay, if I could get a flight deal over here, maybe I could come back and do some house sitting or something. I liked it that much. It was just, I don't know why I loved it so much. I love Asian food.
Okonomiyaki.
Yeah, that was cool. But I loved
Takoyaki.
I loved how every city was like a different personality and the people were, different, and the culture was like it was different than, it was different than here, of course, but different from Europe. It was a unique experience that I had not had somewhere else, and I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. I'm so excited now when people contact me and they're like, we want to go to Japan. I'm like, yes. Because I also have a fabulous supplier, partner that I work with in Japan. And they help put together like really great itineraries with me, with fabulous guides and just great trip support. And they have great community support too. Afterwards, they support a different charity annually. This year, they're supporting a food bank in Japan, and just like really makes my heart jump a little bit. So Japan was my favorite destination.
It's a good favorite, very good favorite. All right, what was the most surprising destination?
Greece was my most surprising. I never wanted to go to Greece, which was, I think, funny for people because it's like one of my top requested destinations, or it was at the beginning of this year. Then it fell off and Japan took it over.
You made a buddy in Greece.
Oh, I made multiple buddies in Greece. what surprised me about Greece, one, I spent some time on the mainland, and that was great. I love the mainland. I spent some time on the Peloponnese Peninsula, and it was great. It was great to get into little villages and to be kind of what felt like the middle of nowhere and, do hiking through there. And it was just gorgeous. And it was so nice. It was not what I expected with Greece, because all I expected was just way too many damn people, so I made the smart decision, and I went in April when the season was just starting to kick off. So nowhere was super busy. If you do want to go to Greece, that is a great time to go. It's not a great time to swim, but it is a great time to go. And so none of the islands were crazy chaotic. They were like busy, but it was absolutely manageable. It was not like the photos that you would kind of see with just over tourism. And so that was like really enjoyable to visit them as well too, and to get around, and it was just an enjoyable really experience. But the mainland was great. It was more beautiful than I expected and offered more. And Greek cuisine was far more vegan friendly than I expected it to be, and that was great. And then I also spent time in Santorini at Ethos Vegan Retreat, which is run by just a fabulous family whom I love. And I don't really want to go back to Santorini, but I will go back to Santorini just to visit them, as I just enjoyed my time with them so much. And they took such great care of me, and the breakfast every morning was great. And I loved that. I really, really loved it all. And, I look forward to going back and exploring some more of the islands, and definitely more of the mainland. And I think if you're thinking about a Greece trip, like maybe forget about some of the islands or spend less time, like spend time in the mainland. Like the country is giant, and people really glom on to just a few different places, but there's so much more of the country to see, and so much more of the country that wants your tourism dollars.
All right. So what was your most challenging trip?
South Africa was the most challenging, and it was challenging on a variety of levels, like the economic, the socioeconomic, status of people in the country. That was hard. The fact that, the effects of apartheid are still, present for people, that was a hard history lesson to revisit, but an important one. We have to, if you're going to visit the country, you have to understand what it's gone through, what it's still going through, to be able to really fully appreciate it. And then the challenges with conservation. Conservation, is important. We need to protect wildlife, but there is a bit of a black history of, black smudge a little bit in that industry, because some of it that's labeled like conservation, it's being fed through unethical breeding programs, and there are ethical issues with somehow the animals are being managed or not managed, and and then behind that too, there are issues with how tourists are being treated and the experiences they get to have, and then locals. And that's not fully bridged. Some places are bridging that gap. So what I mean by that is that there are communities around Kruger National Park that have never had the opportunity to go into the park. They have no reason to respect the wildlife, to respect the environment, because they've never been able to truly cherish it. They've never been able to get that experience like tourists get to have. And that really broke my heart, that I fly, I don't even know how many thousands of miles it is, and get to have this, but people who live right next door don't get to have that. And that's changing, with some places, and places are recognizing it. But, it's an important thing to realize that, because people get really upset about I can't believe that community would kill that animal or whatever. Some of them are killing it because, one, this is the only option that they have. Their family is facing really dire issues where, they don't have another choice. It's this or survive. And I think that puts things in a really different perspective. And it's really hard to judge that person differently when then you realize that their life is, so challenging, and they're not seeing this destination, this epic bucket list trip, like you are. It's survival, and that was a tough pill to swallow. And then, the issues with poaching and what poaching teams are up against and the lack of support that they have, and these people putting their lives on the line to protect the community, to protect wildlife, all of it. That was tough. It was all tough. It was tough. That's the theme of this one. Definitely, it was challenging. I came away from that feeling very heavy. But I would definitely go again. Definitely plan trips there a little bit differently. I have such a great respect for the people in those positions, and yeah.
You did get to see some penguins there, didn't you?
Great change. Yes. So if you're in Cape Town, you can go, I think it's about 2 hours from Cape Town, to Boulder Beach. And that is where African Cape penguins live. And they're super cute. And their population is endangered, I think is the correct term. Mostly because, people and climate change and all that stuff. So that's one place that you can see them, and you can see them in a respectful distance because there's a boardwalk that's been built, and they just do their little cute penguin things, and they're fun to see.
So did you have any trips that disappointed you this year?
So trips specifically, I was thinking about that. I mean, there were definitely parts of trips that I don't know that it disappointed me, but maybe I just was disappointed in myself. And it was kind of going back to the whole expectation things where I didn't stay true to nope, we shouldn't do this. But I felt compelled because people expected it. But I think one of the most disappointing things were some of the events that we attended. And the most was we went to the Planted Expo at the beginning of the year. And I was super excited about that because it was giant. It was the first event.
The event was great.
Yes. I should clarify that. The people who put on the event, they did a fabulous job. Wow. Really great. I would just go back as a visitor to that event. I would drive to Toronto for that. But as an exhibitor, it was harder. But I think, honestly, it was hard and disappointing because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so that was the first one for me out of the gate. I ordered way too much stuff. So I spent too much money, and I didn't even have a budget for it, which will drive me crazy, but whatever. And then I had this expectation that, we were going to get all these new people and they were all going to love everything. And we did get a lot of people. We talked a ton. I think we both lost our voices, which was great. But what I didn't expect was getting pushback. One, that I wasn't Canadian. Oh, sorry.
You weren't local. That was not a good thing. Yeah.
But I'm live next door. So we're 4 hours from Toronto. And
you're doing it for a good cause.
Yeah. And then I also work with a partner who is local on these trips, but that didn't matter. Some people, and I did not expect that. Who did I?
No.
I got a couple real uncomfortable conversations out of that. But then I thought that it was going to be a major turning point for me, that was going to open me up to so many things. And I think that came from just being naive and never having done those before. So while it was disappointing, it was a good learning lesson because it did change what I looked at for other events throughout the year. And it is changing how I look at what events we do for next year and how much I put into it. So yeah, but it sucks when something that's disappointing is financially problemsome, but also as a learning lesson. I wish the learning lessons came from more positive things, but I mean, it is what it is, right? You don't get to choose them all. Get whatever you can out of every battle you have, I guess, and move on and learn from it and don't make the same mistake again twice.
So what are you most proud of from 2024?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't really like to be, I don't know the term for it, prideful, boastful. I know I have to be. And actually, if David, my coach, mentor, heard me say that, he would yell at me right now. Let's see. I'm really proud that Thailand is sold out, to be honest. Like, that feels like a Herculean mountain because, like I said in the beginning, getting in front of people, getting people to change their buying habits, to trust purchasing a trip from me versus a company that's been around for ages and is much larger. Like, why do they want to do that? I'm a weird choice when you really think about it. So to have it sold out a year in advance, like, wow, that like makes me feel so good. And that the trips are getting a little bit easier, getting more momentum building, because people think like automatically, people are like, oh, vegan tour, like all the vegans must flock to it. Like, no, like it takes so much effort just to like consistency in front of people and gaining that audience. And you have to spend a lot of money in marketing and da-da-da-da-da-da. There's so much that goes into it. So to actually see that pay off, that I'm proud of. It feels like a win for sure. And what else? I'm still hanging in there. I feel like I have to be proud of that because I'm not lying when I say that I've thought about, I'll just go work at Trader Joe's. That seems really so much easier because there's definitely something to be said to be able to punch in, punch out, and go about your life and maybe have friends again that aren't on the internet. I laugh, but it's true.
Okay, so really briefly,
yeah.
I've got 2 questions left. Okay. And I'm going to make the first one just really brief.
Okay.
So what's one lesson you want to take from 2024 and apply it in 2025? Just briefly.
I don't like your questions. One lesson. I think actually I do have a good one, is to not take things personally. Oh, that's really hard as a small business owner. And also it's like I think for most people, like a point for tears as well too, that when things go wrong, and they will always go wrong, like every job I've ever had previously, like I'll guarantee you I've had some like real epic problems, but I never took it personally. I didn't ever take things personally until I did this on my own, because it didn't feel like it was a problem for the business. It felt like it was an attack on me. And so that is something that I've had to be very conscious of and take me out of it, and that it's a business decision and I have to move forward, and it will either work out or it won't, but we have to move on. You can't sit there with it. It is what it is.
Yep. That's good. I'm glad. That's like self-reflection. That's positive growth right there. That's very good.
Good. Thanks.
So then last question. What are you most excited for in 2025?
Oh God, that's a great question. What am I most excited for? I am really looking forward to the Iceland trip because we do have some returning passengers. I won't call them out by name. They know who they are. I am really looking forward to seeing them. And I'm really looking forward to going back to Iceland. And I think from Iceland, I'm going to do some other like European research travel if it works out from there. So I am really looking forward to that. I am really looking forward to seeing how things grow for next year. So I planted the little seed that I'm working on ways in which to make things grow, because they need to be larger than me. Like they have to get to a point to really affect change. I can't be the only one pushing this. So how do I find a way to make things grow? And that's going to be a big focus of mine for next year. And so I'm really looking forward to see, okay, what can I make work? What can I not make work? I think that's where I'll leave it.
Cool.
Is that your last question?
That's all the questions I have for today.
Oh, for today. Oh, great. Well, we'll wait a little bit before I bring you back. Well, thank you for joining me to chat about this year. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed this conversation, has enjoyed the little bit of insight I've lifted behind the curtain of like what's really going on over here, how the year has panned out. And as always, you know where to find me if I can ever help. Or if you have questions. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. If you'd also like to learn more about upcoming Veggies Abroad tours or get additional travel help, visit veggiesabroad.com and also join our newsletter. It's the best way to stay up to date with loads of new content, like where to find gorgeous vegan hotels, what to eat in cities around the world, trip planning tips, and so much more. Well, that's all I've got for now. Until next time.